hour-by-hour, day-by-day tracking on Osama bin Laden. That's one of the problems.
Yeah, I understand that at one point the Clinton administration had looked into the possibility of trying to send some sort of force against bin Laden, but because he has so many areas that he operates in within Afghanistan, that they couldn't be sure that the latest intelligence would actually find the person they wanted.
This is the most difficult matter of going after an individual. You either have to know he's got an appointment somewhere, like a meeting, and we did strike at one point when we heard there was going to be a meeting, or you have to have real-time tracking that's with some kind of a pattern so you can actually predict where he's going to be and time the arrival of the force or the munitions or whatever. It's a tough problem.
General Wolf has a question for you as well about this relationship. Wolf?
General Clark, if the U.S., as our national security correspondent David Enser has been reporting, is considering the need for ground forces at some point to go into Afghanistan against Osama bin Laden's forces over there, presumably the U.S. would need some staging point from which to move against these positions in Afghanistan controlled by the Taliban. Are some of the nations in that part of the world, like Saudi Arabia or Kuwait or others, presumably maybe even Pakistan, prepared to allow the United States those kinds of staging points?
Well, I think that'll be a matter of intense diplomatic discussion, but ultimately, if they're on our side and feel those sympathies that they express to us, then they're going to allow us those staging capabilities. We've also got alternatives. We may be able to use a sea-based staging platform, but we've got to look at the time, distance factors, the size of the force, what the mission is, before we really know what the requirements are for logistics.
And the U.S. obviously has some aircraft carriers in the region as well, potentially.
That's
Joey?
exactly right.
General Clark, thanks very much for that additional information about the scene we see in that part of the world. Now back to the part of the world where the search is still underway. Lower Manhattan, where the work goes on at the World Trade Center site. Gary Tuchman is standing by there now. Gary.
Well, Joey, it's now been 3.5 days since terrorists commandeered an American Airlines plane and a United Airlines plane and crashed them into the World Trade Centers, which was 5 blocks behind me. And even after all this time, after 82 hours, this still doesn't feel real. As a former New Yorker, I used to walk down this street that I'm on right now, Greenwich Street. I used to rollerblade down the street no matter what the weather was or the situation. There was one constant. You saw these 2 gleaming 110-story buildings right down the street. And now what we see are smoldering ruins. And when you get close to the scene, it really looks like hell, because you just see the burning, fires continuing. You see the smoke, and it's almost like a geyser. The smoke hasn't stopped since this happened on Tuesday. It's been a very, very eventful day, but the most important thing hasn't happened today, and that is the discovery of survivors. For the last 2 full days, not one survivor has been found, and that's very bad news considering the fact that about 4,700 people are still missing. The potential is that 4,700 people are buried just a few blocks behind me. What did happen today was a visit by the President of the United States. George W. Bush arrived here in New York City about 4 o'clock Eastern time, about 3 hours and 20 minutes ago. He is still here as we speak right now, but when he came here, he went to the site and he met with the hundreds of rescue workers who are there right now. And they all started shouting, USA, USA. They were very enthusiastic, very happy to see the President of the United States, who toured the site with the Governor of New York, George Pataki, the Mayor, Rudy Giuliani. And it certainly was people from all parties all together, because it was the 2 Democratic senators from the state also with him, Charles Schumer and Hillary Rodham Clinton. The President of the United States then went on top of the rubble, surrounded by workers, and talked to them.
Sorry. Thank you all.
Sorry, go ahead, Mo.
What's a boom?
Go ahead, got it.
I want you all to know it can't go any louder. I want you all to know that America today is on bended knee in prayer for the people whose lives were lost here, for the workers who work here, for the families who mourn. This nation stands with the good people of New York City and New Jersey and Connecticut as we mourn the loss of thousands of our citizens. I can hear you. I can hear you soon. The nation sends its love
Harry, by
and
pushing me.
compassion
No, sorry.
to everybody who is here.
Cross the line on that one.
Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for making the nation proud. And may God bless America.
It was quite an extraordinary sight. The President of the United States standing on the wreckage of the World Trade Center and saying, quote, "The people who knocked down these buildings are going to hear from all of us." Those are words that people will remember for a very long time. And we want to talk about the rescue workers who are on the scene. There are between 1,000 and 2,000 of them at any given time. And you may tend to forget how dangerous that work is, considering that the rubble continues to shift. One thing you have to keep in mind, you may remember this, you may not, but we want to talk about Oklahoma City. During the Oklahoma City disaster, one of the volunteers who went in there was a nurse. She was hit on the head by falling rubble, and she died. Her name was Rebecca Anderson. She was one of the 168 people who perished in the building, and there was a chair at the Oklahoma City Memorial in her honor. Wolf and Joey, back to you.
Much, Gary. I want to go now to Elizabeth Cohn. She's been at the Armory in New York telling some incredible stories of people searching for their loved ones. Elizabeth, tell us what's happening now.
Wolf, what's happened is that this corner where families come and they register information about their loved ones so that the authorities can help find them has sort of evolved into a natural gathering place where ordinary citizens come to give comfort to those who are missing their loved ones. As you can see here, people have gathered to light candles. And if we move across the street over here, we can see all those posters that are up there. Those are posters of people who are missing. When you walk around this city, it is like gardens of these have shown up all over, and they're not just there. People actually stop and they look at them. I met someone yesterday who was down here, and I said, "Sir, are you missing a loved one?" And he said, "No, I just wanted to see if I knew anyone in these posters, and maybe I possibly might know something about them." You can see up above people in their apartment are lighting candles. It's just, again, everything here has happened so spontaneously. When families have come to register information with the police about their missing loved ones, they might find another family who's missing someone from the same company, and they then share information, and we have seen people just support one another in truly incredible ways. There's a young woman down here who I'd like to speak with. Her name is Sarah. Sarah, tell me why you came here today.
I came here to just comfort the families who lost their loved ones. I'm just very sad about this tragedy.
Thank you. And that is simply and eloquently put the reason why everyone is here. I have someone who handed me a candle here, and it says, "Join in an outdoor vigil. Light a candle wherever you are and show the world that we are strong, we are united, and we will not tolerate terrorism." Wolf?
Elizabeth, I want to go to a live picture from Boston right now where I believe some of these candlelight ceremonies are continuing.
Have fanned out across the country to help with this emotional trauma.
This is in Birmingham, Alabama, where the candlelight ceremony, one of many around the United States, is continuing. If Elizabeth Cohn is still there,
Sorry?
I want to talk to Elizabeth as we look at this candlelight vigil in Boston. But Elizabeth, there are about 5,000 people who are officially listed as missing in New York City. Does that mean that is the eventually, perhaps tragically, we hope not, going to be the death toll? Are there others that perhaps are not officially listed? Is that the issue there?
Oh, wait.
All right. Unfortunately, Elizabeth Cohn is having some problems hearing. Let's listen and watch this this candlelight vigil that's continuing in Boston right now.
A family under one sky, aye, aye. We're all a family under one sky. A family under one sky. Let's sing that together. Here we go. 1, 2, you know what to do. We're all a family under one sky. A family under one sky, aye, aye. We're all a family under one sky. A family under one sky. That was beautiful. sing that chorus again. But this time I want to see you swaying back and forth.
Elizabeth Cohen, I hope you can hear me now. I wanted to try to pinpoint the numbers that we're getting, the tragic numbers of those missing. There are almost 5,000 who are officially listed as missing, but that number could go up, couldn't it?
Dave, they want to go
that number, I don't really know what the actual official numbers are. What I know is that the families who've gathered here, the families who are missing loved ones, they don't really care about the numbers. All of them, almost without exception, say, I know that my brother, mother, father, sister, girlfriend, boyfriend, I know he or she is alive. I can feel it in my heart. I know that he or she is out there. Perhaps they're one of the John or Jane Does who's in the hospital. Perhaps they're in a coma, but I know they're waiting for me.
So what you're saying, Elizabeth, is they still are holding out hope against hope that they're going to find their loved ones.
Exactly. I mean, it's hope against hope, but they don't really think of it that way. They really think of it as hope. I thought today, I've been talking to them now since Wednesday morning, and I thought today perhaps the hope might have dissipated, might have gone down, but it really hasn't. They really truly believe that they're going to be the ones who are going to find someone alive.
And is there any sense how many of those Jane Does and John Does are currently listed in hospitals?
Well, if they don't know who they are, then they're listed as just unknown. But when people come to the Armory, which is what you see here on the corner, they're given two lists. And one is a list of people who are in the hospital, and another one is a list of people who they've identified as being deceased. Apparently, there are a small number of people who are in hospitals, but they don't know who they are. Or at least that's what I've heard here. But again, it's a very small number, Wolf.
And are the crowds increasing as the hours tonight go on, or are they beginning to go away?
Well, the crowd right now is pretty big because of the candlelight vigil, but as far as families actually coming and registering information with the authorities and taking a look at these lists, that has gone way down. Yesterday, the lines were around the corner. It could take an hour or even more than that to get through the line. Today, there were far fewer people. I think yesterday was really the day where people wanted to come in and give information. They were also asked to bring information back in later. They were asked to bring in hair samples. They were asked for immediate family to give blood samples so that DNA could be matched if a body was found.
Elizabeth Cohen at the Armory in New York. Once again, thank you so much for sharing those stories with us. Back to you, Joey.
Wolf, New York also got much inspiration and hope from President Bush and his visit. You see that the work is still underway at the World Trade Center site, 24 hours a day. The perhaps thousands of people involved still working away down there. That is a live picture you're seeing from the scene. Also looking on to the scene today is CNN's Richard Roth, who's following up on the president's visit there. And Richard, if you could talk to us a little bit now about the impact that the weather might have had on the search efforts. I did see that the plumes of smoke seemed to be down somewhat. I'm wondering if the rain did at least have some effect on dampening down those big plumes of smoke coming up from the rubble.
Well, you're seeing work continuing right now in the rubble just about an hour and a half after President Bush departed here. Tractors, excavation equipment, illuminated by floodlights, very eerie scene. But yes, above that rubble, hanging all over the workers, despite about 14 to 17 hours of driving, pounding rain and strong winds, the cloud is still there. It almost seems bigger. It is just a mix of dust and ash, and of course fears of some levels of asbestos concern a lot of people in this area, and the clouds are wafting a bit west at the moment over some of these buildings that are of concern to rescue workers. And, still rushing to the scene here, a little late though, but like the cavalry, there's a gigantic line that stretches perhaps a mile. It goes past some of the skyscrapers here. I can't even see it. The buildings are a mixture of ambulances, buses, trucks, cars, because that West Side Highway, the main access road to get supplies and help into the World Trade Center zone, that was closed because of President Bush's visit. So now that he's gone, they've opened the road. It's an amazing sight of vehicles